Hi guys. What did Roman prostitutes actually do all day? You probably think you know, but the truth is less glamorous and a lot more drafty. Welcome to the surprisingly well-documented, yet wildly misunderstood daily life of Rome's working women. Before we begin, take a moment to get comfortable. If you enjoy these sleepy wanderings through history, consider subscribing, but only if you genuinely feel like it. No pressure, and I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from, and what time is it right now? Drop it in the comments. It's always strangely comforting to see who else is lying awake across the world at this moment. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft, steady hum. Let the day slip off your shoulders. Tonight, we're stepping into Rome, the eternal city of marble and chaos, to trail after someone whose life was anything but eternal. You wake up. No, you regain consciousness in a cramped little chamber. 4 walls, if you can call them that. You stretch and immediately elbow stone. Congratulations, you live in a cellar, the ancient Roman version of working from home. Only your job requires face powder, oil, and a talent for dodging judgmental glances. These rooms are standard issue in the lupanar, the Roman brothel. Some are tucked under taverns, some stacked over bathhouses. Think of it as a studio apartment designed by someone who hates light, air, and privacy. The mattress is a straw sack. It smells faintly of wine, smoke, and disappointment. If you're lucky, there's a clay oil lamp. If you're really lucky, it hasn't been stolen. A few possessions. Cheap rouge, a comb, maybe a battered bronze mirror, are shoved in the corner, sulking like they, too, are tired of living here. There's no running water, no plumbing, just a bucket you try not to think about. Bathing will be later, and it will involve strangers, steam, and the awkward recognition that eye contact in the nude is timeless. But you can't linger, because here in Rome, your room is also your office. And office hours, whenever someone knocks, barges in, or simply yells through the doorway. Privacy is a modern luxury. In Rome, walls are more like suggestions. Your day begins the same way every morning. Sweep out yesterday's dust, wine stains, and maybe a sandal left behind by last night's visitor. Then comes the prep. Face powder, a smear of red rouge, and enough perfume to make you flammable. You practice your half smile in the bronze mirror, not because it works. No one's ever booked you for your smile, but because pretending helps. A customer once described you as charmingly awake, and you've been riding that compliment like a chariot ever since, because in this job, dignity is rationed like grain, and you need just enough to get you to lunchtime. Here's your first fact of the night. Roman law required prostitutes to register with the authorities and wear specific clothing that made their work visible. No subtle marketing here. You were a walking advertisement. Historians still debate whether all women complied or whether some slipped through in disguise. An obscure tidbit: some brothels painted tiny frescoes above the doors of each cell, little menu boards of erotic scenes. Imagine a food court, but with murals you can't put on Instagram. And just so you know, you probably won't make it through this day, but that's fine, because we're only here to drift gently into the rhythms of it. Now take a breath. Let your eyelids grow heavy. We're stepping out of the cellar soon, into the city that never quite smells clean. Let's ease into tonight's journey. You step into the street, and instantly the world rushes at you. Shouts, carts, the smell of frying fish, colliding with sewage, and a hint of incense from a nearby temple. Trying bravely to mask it all, Rome is awake, alive, and already sweaty. Your sandals slap the cobbles as you weave through the morning bustle. Merchants are unrolling their stalls. Philosophers are preparing to argue about everything, and somewhere a senator is muttering into his toga about grain shortages. For you, the first stop is hygiene, or what passes for it. No private bathroom waits at home. That luxury is for the wealthy, and even their toilets are pots with ambition. For you, the best option is the nearest public fountain or bathhouse, depending on how many coins are jangling in your purse. This morning, you're broke, so it's the fountain. You splash water on your face. Rinse your mouth with a bit of wine if you're lucky, and hope no one just washed a chicken in the basin. There's no soap, but maybe you have a pinch of natron, a salty powder that exfoliates your skin and, incidentally, your self-esteem. It stings, it scrapes, and it leaves you feeling a bit less like yesterday. Historians still debate how often prostitutes actually used the baths, since some owners encouraged it for hygiene, while others saw it as a waste of earnings. If today's pace is slow, and you've somehow scraped together a few coins, you might risk the public baths. Everyone's there. Merchants, soldiers, philosophers, and that one man who talks far too loudly about his medical issues. You undress, store your clothes in a niche you trust way too easily, and step into tepid water. The steam clings to your hair. The air buzzes with gossip and coughs. You scrape your skin with a strigil, a curved bronze blade, and for 5 fleeting minutes, you are the cleanest person on your street. That title vanishes the moment you walk out. Here's your historical fact. Rome had over 800 public baths by the late Empire. These weren't luxuries. They were essential, serving everyone from senators to slaves. And the obscure tidbit, some bathhouses offered not just pools and steam rooms, but libraries, snack bars, and even perfumers. Imagine combining a spa, a mall, and a very damp book club. When you're finished, you dab yourself dry with a scrap of cloth, reapply a bit of chalk powder to your face, rouge to your lips, and kohl around your eyes. Not for beauty, it's camouflage. Clients don't want to see the exhaustion of someone who has already handled 3 sailors before noon. They want mystery, allure, and a hint of perfume strong enough to drown out old lentils. Your outfit is next, and here's the cruel irony. Respectable Roman matrons wear the stola, a long layered dress that says, "My husband owns land, and I go to bed at 9. You, by law, are denied that garment. Instead, you're required to wear the female toga. Yes, the toga, that flowing symbol of Roman citizenship, becomes, in your case, a billboard. It's short, often brightly colored, deliberately flashy, less goddess, more visible from across the forum. Add some cheap jewelry, bronze beads, loud earrings, and the look is complete. The goal isn't elegance, it's visibility. Subtlety doesn't pay rent. You glance at your reflection in a puddle, shrug, and head toward the forum. Another day begins, another day of surviving, performing, and trying not to trip on your own hem. And if you're wondering whether deodorant had been invented yet, the answer is no. But don't worry, you smell better than at least half the crowd around you. That's a small victory. Your sandals slap against the stones as you walk, and the hum of the city folds you in. Remember the cellar you swept out earlier? Its stale air is already tugging at your thoughts. But for now, you're out in Rome, visible, perfumed, and waiting for whatever the day decides to throw at you. By mid-morning, the streets are a theater, and you are one of the actors, though never the star. The clatter of hooves echoes between tall, soot-stained walls. Vendors shout their prices, juggling baskets of figs, olives, and salted fish. You pass by women with tidy braids and spotless stole, their servants trailing behind. They glance at you, and in that glance is every opinion you already know. Curiosity, disdain, or sometimes a flicker of envy they'll never admit. You carry yourself with a practiced nonchalance. Visibility is the goal, remember. Standing out without standing apart too much. This delicate balancing act means your day starts not just with perfume and rouge, but with location scouting. Which corner of the Forum? Which street near the baths? Position matters more than charm. Here's your historical fact. Prostitutes in Rome were often stationed near taverns, theaters, or circuses. The logic was simple. Where there's wine, spectacle, and crowds, there's business. And the obscure tidbit? Some brothels supposedly had graffiti outside advertising the specialties of the women inside. Think of it as ancient marketing without the SEO optimization. You find your spot near the shadow of a column, just where a patch of sunlight falls. The toga catches the eye, and so do the bangles jangling on your wrist. You lean casually against the wall, though inside you're already calculating how many clients today to cover the cost of food, how many more to maybe buy a better comb. A pair of young men walk by, too confident for their own good. One whispers to the other, and they both laugh, loud enough for you to hear. You ignore them, the same way you ignore the peddler, shouting about freshest garum in Rome. You're not here for banter. You're here to work. Privacy? Forget it. Walls in this city are thin, and so are reputations. You keep your smile ready, though it's more armor than invitation. Historians still debate the level of autonomy prostitutes had in choosing clients. Were you free to decline, or was refusal dangerous? The sources contradict themselves, leaving you suspended in uncertainty. By noon, your stomach is grumbling. You buy a cheap snack, maybe a hunk of bread dipped in wine, or a fig if luck favors you. You eat quickly, standing, as the world swirls around. The sun climbs higher, and the city grows louder, hotter, and more impatient. Your cheeky moment of the day. You remember once seeing a man trip on his toga while trying to impress a woman like you. The poor fellow went sprawling into a pile of cabbages. If Rome had reality TV, that moment would have gone viral. But no such luck for him, or you. You finish your bread, brush the crumbs from your toga, and brace yourself. The afternoon is coming, and so are the customers. The afternoon sun leans heavy against the city, turning stone walls into radiators. Shade is scarce, and everyone is crankier than they want to admit. You return to your little cell, sweeping aside the thin curtain that serves as a door. The air inside is cooler, if only because it's damp. The straw mattress sulks in the corner, daring you to sit, daring you to nap. You don't. Instead, you tidy, sweep away the dust, light the oil lamp if it hasn't been stolen again, and rearrange your few possessions for the 100th time. A comb here, rouge there. It's less about order and more about pretending you have control over something. Here's a fact. Roman brothels, lupinaria, were often marked with the carving of a wolf, since lupa, she-wolf, was slang for prostitute. That wolf above your door is both an advertisement and a warning. An obscure tidbit: archaeologists have found dice in some brothels, suggesting clients and workers sometimes gambled between encounters. Imagine waiting your turn with a senator while someone in the next room rolls a 6. You prepare for visitors. The ritual is mechanical now. Powder the face, adjust the toga, reapply the perfume. You practice that half smile again in the bronze mirror, still chipped from the last time someone knocked it over. Your first client of the afternoon arrives with a knock. Too loud, too eager. He's already had wine. You open the curtain and let him in, though the room seems even smaller with his presence. He talks too much, gesturing wildly. You smile, nod, and wait. The transaction is quick, not glamorous, and over before you've finished calculating how many loaves of bread his coin will buy. You sweep up afterward, air the room out with a futile wave, and sit for a moment on the edge of the mattress. The lamp flickers. Outside, footsteps echo in the corridor. Another knock will come soon. Historians still debate whether Roman prostitutes had any real protections under the law. Some evidence suggests they could appeal to magistrates if mistreated. Others argue the law was more spectacle than shield, a touch of humor to soften the edges. Once, you overheard a client boast that he'd been with a Vestal virgin. Given the Vestal's infamous vow of chastity, you can't decide if that was a scandalous confession or just creative marketing. The hours blur together. Coins clink into your purse. Straw shifts beneath your sandals. And you practice that same half smile again and again. The sun sinks, but your day is far from over. Rome doesn't sleep, not really, and neither, it seems, do you. By the time the afternoon slips into its long shadowed hours, the city outside grows louder in some ways, and quieter in others. Street vendors begin to pack up their stalls, calling out last prices as if shouting will trick someone into wanting wilted lettuce. Children dart through the alleys, their laughter clashing with the groan of carts rolling home. From your tiny chamber, you listen. It's like Rome itself is exhaling after holding its breath all day. But you don't exhale. Not yet. You know the rhythm too well. Evening means another round of visitors, sometimes more unpredictable than the midday crowd. Sailors fresh off the Tiber docks, merchants still jangling with coin, even soldiers with the particular swagger of men who think their shield is still strapped to their arm. Here's your historical fact. Prostitution wasn't just tolerated in Rome. It was regulated. Brothel owners paid taxes, and some scholars even argue these taxes funded public games. Imagine that. Your day's labor helping to sponsor a chariot race. The obscure tidbit: some Roman brothels had price lists scrawled on the walls, simple, direct, and about as romantic as ordering bread. You tidy again, more for ritual than need. Straw brushed aside, lamp adjusted, the curtain pulled just enough to say, "Yes, I'm here." But no, don't barge in like you're storming Gaul. Your first evening client smells of garlic and triumph. He's quick, careless, and gone before the lamp stops flickering. The second one, quieter, older, lingers too long, talking about his failing business, as if you're a priestess with a miracle tucked under your toga. You nod politely, even sympathetically, though inside you're counting the heartbeats until he leaves. Historians still debate how much of this world was voluntary and how much was coerced. The truth, as always, is probably tangled somewhere in between. For a brief moment, you catch your reflection in the bronze mirror. The kohl around your eyes has smudged. Your smile is thinner than you remembered. You touch up your face with a dusty hand and mutter a joke only you can hear. Charmingly awake? Not tonight. Outside, the streets hum with music and laughter, drifting from taverns. You remember the fountain you splashed at earlier? The one where someone probably washed a chicken. Funny how that quick rinse feels like another lifetime. Now, as the night deepens, you brace yourself for more knocks, more voices, more footsteps in the corridor. You probably won't make it through this day, but you carry on anyway. Because in Rome, survival isn't glamorous, it's just survival. Night in Rome has a strange personality. It's not quiet, not really, just different. The clang of hammers fades, replaced by the plucking of lyres and the deep laughter of men already drunk enough to forget their debts. Oil lamps flicker in windows, glowing like tired stars. The air smells of smoke, spilled wine, and the faint sweetness of figs sold too late in the day. You sit on the edge of your mattress, sandals loose, listening. Somewhere above, tavern goers are arguing about politics, as if their voices could sway the Senate. The walls shake with their enthusiasm. You wonder if they know you can hear every word, or if they even care. Here's tonight's fact. Roman taverns, copone, were often paired with brothels, a convenient package deal for men who wanted wine first and company after. The obscure tidbit? Archaeologists have found phallic amulets carved into tavern walls, symbols meant to ward off bad luck, protection charms, in a city where most people needed more than luck. Another knock rattles your curtain. This one slower, heavier. You rise, adjust the toga, and open the way. He's older, maybe 50, with eyes that wander the room as though expecting luxury. He sits awkwardly on the straw mattress, frowns at the lamp's weak glow, and mutters about missing home. The encounter is brief, punctuated more by sighs than words. When he leaves, you sit still for a long time. The night stretches. Rome outside grows rowdier, songs slurring into shouts. Coins clink softly in your purse, though they feel lighter than they should. Historians still debate whether prostitutes were allowed any nights off. Some think owners rotated shifts. Others suspect rest was a luxury most never had. Either way, you know you'll be here tomorrow. Same curtain, same lamp, same hollow smile to soften the edge. A dry joke drifts into your thoughts. If Rome had Yelp, your cell would have 1 star. Smells faintly of smoke and disappointment, but gets the job done. You lie back, eyes tracing cracks in the ceiling. The lamp sputters, shadows dancing across stone. And though your body begs for sleep, you know it's not over yet, because in Rome, even the night has business hours. Midnight in Rome is a peculiar thing. The city doesn't fall silent, it just changes key. The daytime chorus of merchants and senators gives way to the low hum of taverns, the clatter of dice against wooden counters, and the half-sung songs of men trying to remember the words. From your small chamber, you hear it all, like living inside a drum. While someone plays it badly, you sit cross-legged on your straw mattress, tracing a line in the dust with your finger. The lamp sputters, throwing shadows that stretch longer than the room deserves. The air is stale, thick with the perfume you applied earlier, now soured by sweat and smoke. The curtain flutters once, then a knock, softer than usual, almost hesitant. The man who steps in is young, barely more than a boy. His toga is crooked, his hands fidget. He says little, and you say less. When it's over, he leaves a coin, heavy for its worth, as if embarrassed to take it back. Here's your historical fact. Roman coins often bore the profile of emperors, meaning every payment you receive comes stamped with the face of the man technically ruling your life. Augustus, Tiberius, Nero. Your purse is a gallery of stern, disapproving busts, an obscure tidbit. Some brothel walls carried graffiti, written by clients bragging about their experiences. I was here, scratched into plaster. Not much different from bathroom graffiti in a dive bar 2 millennia later. You lean back, purse in hand, and listen to the boy's footsteps fade down the corridor. You imagine him fumbling through the streets, cheeks hot, convinced the world knows where he's been. Historians still debate whether women in your position kept their own earnings or surrendered them entirely to a brothel keeper. The truth probably varied, but in your case, the jingling in your purse feels like both freedom and chain. Your joke of the night comes when you glance at the ceiling and whisper, "At least the fleas don't pay rent." The fleas, of course, don't laugh. Another knock will come soon enough. It always does. But for a moment, you lie still, eyelids heavy, listening to Rome's midnight heart. The hours between midnight and dawn are strange, elastic things. Time stretches and contracts depending on the sound outside your curtain. Dice thrown on a tavern table, a donkey braying at nothing in particular, the deep, throaty laugh of a man who thinks he has won more than he actually has. You sit awake, because in your line of work, sleep is more rumor than reality. A soldier arrives, cloak still smelling of leather and sweat. He collapses onto your mattress, as though the war drums are still beating in his head. He leaves behind a coin, heavier than most, stamped with the face of Trajan. You stare at it for a long moment. Trajan, stern and immovable, gazes at you like a silent witness to your life. Here's your historical fact. The aerarium, Rome's public treasury, took in significant revenue from prostitution taxes. Every coin you collect is not just payment, it's paperwork, stamped approval from the empire itself. The obscure tidbit. Some Roman amulets, designed for protection, were shaped like tiny phalluses. People wore them around their necks, tucked them in children's cradles, even carved them on door frames. Rome was nothing, if not literal, in its charms. The soldier leaves, and silence returns. Well, not silence. Rome doesn't do silence, but the noise outside dulls into a background hum. You lie down, pulling your thin blanket up to your chin. The straw pokes your skin, and the faint smell of garlic from your last visitor clings to the air. Historians still debate whether prostitutes were organized in guilds or simply left to fend for themselves. Some sources hint at collective networks, others suggest solitary survival. For you, it feels like both. Loneliness wrapped in the echo of footsteps down the hall. You chuckle once, softly. If this is the city of marble, you murmur to the empty room. Why do I always get the straw? The lamp flickers, threatening to die. You close your eyes, not to sleep, but to drift in that half place between waking and dreaming, where Rome sounds less harsh and feels almost kind, almost. Dawn creeps into Rome, not with silence, but with renewed clatter. The city wakes like a restless sleeper, stretching, groaning, already demanding breakfast. Roosters crow from somewhere far off. though half the time it's just a drunk pretending to be one. From your cellar, you sense the light changing, even if it barely slips past the doorway curtain. You rise slowly, bones stiff from the straw mattress. The lamp has burned out. A chill hangs in the damp air, smelling faintly of yesterday's visitors. Smoke drifting from the tavern upstairs. You sweep the floor out of habit, though there's nothing left to sweep but tired dust. Here's your historical fact. Roman mornings often began at the public fountains, where citizens of every class filled jugs and amphorae for the day's use. Water was communal, carried in arms and balanced on heads. The obscure tidbit: some fountains had carved spouts shaped like lions' heads or grotesque masks. Imagine brushing your teeth in front of a stone lion, its mouth gushing water that's probably been used to wash everything from hands to chickens. You pull on your toga again, smoothing the creases as if it matters. Outside, vendors are already shouting about fresh bread and honey cakes. The smell drifts through the alley and makes your stomach clench with hunger. You buy a small loaf, stale but serviceable, tearing into it as you walk. Historians still debate how early prostitutes began their workdays. Some suggest dawn, others claim mid-morning, depending on clientele. For you, dawn means new faces, new calculations, and the same old smile practiced in a bronze mirror. A pair of builders pass by, carrying tools over their shoulders. One winks, the other laughs. You ignore them, chewing bread that tastes like sawdust, and whisper to yourself, better bread than their company. The sun climbs, shadows shorten, and the day begins again. Louder, hotter, and already too long. By mid-morning, the city hums like a hive. Bees in togas, you think, buzzing from shop to shop, temple to temple. The sound of chisels rings out. As masons chip at marble blocks, children trail their mothers, tugging on hems and whining for sweets. You stand in your chosen spot near the market, toga draped carefully, earrings catching the light just enough to be noticed. Visibility is survival, and survival is everything. Here's your historical fact. The Roman Forum wasn't just politics and speeches. It was a bustling commercial hub where bankers, barbers, and booksellers mingled. Prostitutes knew that where there's commerce, there's opportunity. The obscure tidbit: some stalls sold perfume made from myrrh and saffron, strong enough to mask the scent of fish markets and sweat. Expensive, yes, but a drop behind the ears could make you smell like wealth, or at least like someone else's attempt at it. A young philosopher wanders past, toga uneven, hair wild from sleepless debate. He mutters about virtue, barely glancing at you. Another man, older, slows down, eyes tracing your outline, before shaking his head and walking on. Judgment and temptation share the same cobblestones. Historians still debate whether prostitutes ever targeted specific classes of clients, merchants, soldiers, or senators, or simply took whoever approached. The evidence is patchy, much like your toga after a long day. A cheeky moment comes when a stray dog trots into the market, stealing a loaf of bread from a distracted vendor. The crowd laughs as the dog escapes, tail high, triumphant. You laugh too, softly, wishing you had half its nerve. The sun is hotter now, pressing on your shoulders, turning the marble streets into blinding mirrors. Sweat beads under your rouge, but the smile stays fixed. Another morning, another performance, and the day isn't even halfway through. The sun rises higher, and Rome begins to shimmer under its heat. The stones radiate warmth like a giant oven, and the city smells like it too. Baking bread, ripening fruit, and the sharp tang of sweat that clings to every tunic and toga. You shift your weight, adjusting your sandals, wishing shade wasn't such a luxury. From your spot, you watch the rhythm of the crowd. Merchants lean on their counters, fanning themselves with scraps of parchment. Children dart between legs, playing games that involve more noise than rules. A beggar rattles a cup, coins clinking weakly like tired applause. You are both visible and invisible here, noticed but not acknowledged. Here's your historical fact. Roman prostitutes were required to register with the aediles, the officials responsible for public morals and markets. Their names were entered into records, essentially branding them for life. No erasing that ink once it dried. The obscure tidbit: some Roman women, to dodge scandal, registered themselves as prostitutes, even if they weren't. Why? So they could sidestep the strict moral codes placed on respectable matrons. Freedom by paperwork, though it came at a cost. A group of soldiers passes, their sandals kicking up dust, shields strapped lazily to their backs. One throws a glance your way, smirks, and mutters something to his friend. You pretend not to hear, though your ears burn. Another man, older, pauses to ask your price. His voice is low, practical. You quote a number. He shakes his head and moves on. Negotiation without purchase. Rome's other favorite sport. Historians still debate whether prices were standardized or wildly variable, depending on appearance, location, and luck. The fragments of graffiti and literary jokes don't exactly clear things up. Your humor, for the moment, you imagine a sign above your head reading half-price afternoons. Buy one senator, get the second free. Rome would never allow it, but the thought makes you smile. The sun keeps climbing, sweat trickles down your back, mingling with perfume until you're not sure which scent wins. The city hums on, and you remain, half smiling, half enduring, wholly surviving. By early afternoon, Rome becomes restless. The heat presses down, heavy as a lead shield, and tempers fray. Vendors snap at customers, children cry louder, and even the pigeons look irritated. Somewhere nearby, a man shouts about garum, the fish sauce, beloved by Romans and dreaded by everyone else's noses. You retreat briefly to your small cell, pulling aside the curtain to escape the blaze. Inside, the air is cooler, if damp. The straw mattress looks tempting, but you know better than to lie down now. If you close your eyes, you might not open them until dusk, and coins don't earn themselves. Here's your historical fact. Roman brothels were often organized with narrow hallways and rows of small cubicles, each barely large enough for a mattress and lamp. Privacy was not the point. Efficiency was. The obscure tidbit. Some brothels even had stone beds built into the walls, covered with straw or cloth. Practical, yes, but about as inviting as lying on a kitchen counter. You sit at the edge of your mattress, combing your hair with slow, deliberate strokes. The mirror shows a tired face, but paint and powder can still turn it into something marketable. You dab rouge on your cheeks, smear kohl around your eyes, and reapply the perfume that has already lost half its battle against sweat. A knock comes, sharp, impatient. You pull the curtain aside. The man who enters reeks of wine, though it's barely past noon. His laugh is too loud for the small room. The encounter is quick. The coin dropped with careless fingers. When he leaves, silence feels like luxury. Historians still debate whether brothel workers ever had personal time in their cells, or whether every moment was subject to intrusion. The evidence suggests both possibilities, leaving you suspended in uncertainty. You chuckle once, dryly, whispering, "At least the curtain works better than Senate law." Outside, the heat swells, voices rising with it. Rome is still alive, impatient, hungry for evening. And you, well, you are still here, preparing for the next knock, the next coin, the next smile you don't quite feel. By mid-afternoon, the city feels like it's been simmering in a pot too long. Every sound carries farther. The creak of wagon wheels, the sharp call of a fruit seller, the echo of sandals on stone. Even the flies are sluggish, circling lazily as if drunk on the heat. You lean against the doorway of your cell, curtain drawn half aside, watching Rome flicker in and out of shadow. The tavern above you is restless. Mugs slam, laughter bursts, and the sound of dice skittering across a table rattles through the beams. Every cheer is followed by a groan, every groan by another cheer. If survival had a soundtrack, this would be it. Here's your historical fact. Gambling was technically illegal in Rome, but dice were everywhere, especially in taverns and brothels. Even emperors were known to sneak a game. Augustus, famously, was fond of throwing dice, though he liked to pretend it was for family fun. The obscure tidbit: some Romans carried their own set of dice, carved from bone or ivory, tucked away in little pouches, like bringing your own cutlery to a feast. But noisier, a man stumbles down from the tavern, flushed and grinning. He peers into your cell, asks a question that slurs into itself, and waves a coin like a banner. You take it, because refusing is rarely worth the trouble. The visit is brief, more his conversation with wine than with you. When he leaves, he forgets his pouch of dice. You roll one absent-mindedly across the floor. 6. Of course, historians still debate whether prostitutes doubled as gambling partners, keeping clients entertained between drinks. Some think the dice were just distractions. Others suspect they were part of the appeal. You smile faintly, tucking the dice pouch into the corner. "Payment enough," you murmur, though you know the brothel keeper would disagree. Outside, the heat begins to soften, just slightly. Shadows lengthen, voices rise again, and the city prepares for evening with all the energy of a second sunrise. And you, still painted, still perfumed, brace for another round. Evening presses down with a different kind of weight. Not heat, but anticipation. Rome thrives on its nights. Taverns spill over with laughter, musicians tune lyres and flutes, and jugglers gather small crowds near the forum. The city glows with oil lamps, each one a flickering star in a constellation of chaos. You step outside your cell, sandals slapping against stone, perfume trailing faintly in the damp air. The toga, bright and short, catches glances in the lamplight. Visibility is the currency you spend before coins arrive. Here's your historical fact. Women in your profession were forbidden from wearing the stola, the garment of matrons. Instead, the female toga was required, a law as much about visibility as about shame. Rome preferred its categories clear, even when its streets weren't. The obscure tidbit: some togas were dyed with saffron or bright red, colors loud enough to shout even in dim light. Subtlety was never part of the uniform. You find your spot near a tavern doorway, leaning against the wall as men come and go. A few glance at you, others pretend not to, though their eyes flicker in your direction anyway. One stumbles close, asks your name, and then forgets it before you've even finished saying it. Names don't matter much here. Historians still debate how much individuality prostitutes could express through jewelry or hairstyles. Some evidence suggests freedom, others point to regulation. The record, like your reflection in a puddle, is blurred. A man sings off-key nearby, strumming a lyre with more enthusiasm than skill. The crowd laughs, coins clink into his bowl. You smirk, whispering under your breath, "Wrong job, perhaps." The tavern door bursts open, spilling light and laughter into the street. Rome's evening is officially alive. You adjust your earrings, smooth the toga, and smile the smile that has become both mask and weapon. The knocks may come later or sooner, but for now, you are part of the city's glow, another flickering light in a place that never truly darkens. The evening deepens, and Rome grows rowdy. The tavern upstairs vibrates with stomping feet, cups clinking in uneven rhythm. Somewhere, a man tries to sing a heroic ballad, only to forget half the words and fill the gaps with nonsense. The crowd cheers anyway. Drunkenness forgives all flaws. You sit just inside your doorway, curtain half drawn, pretending to look bored while keeping your eyes sharp. A group of sailors wander past, fresh from the docks. Their tunics smell of salt and fish, their laughter thick with bravado. One of them pauses, coins jingling in his hand, and pushes through your curtain. The others hoot and jeer, pounding the wall as if to prove their solidarity. The room swallows him. The curtain falls. And just like that, your office hours continue. Here's your historical fact. Many Roman prostitutes catered specifically to sailors and soldiers, men flush with pay after campaigns or voyages. They spent freely, sometimes recklessly, knowing tomorrow might never come. The obscure tidbit: sailors often carried tiny good luck charms carved into phallic shapes, believing them to protect against storms and curses. They jingled in pouches or dangled from belts, a superstitious shield in a dangerous world. The sailor in your room laughs too loudly, boasts too much, and leaves too quickly. When he's gone, the air smells even stronger of salt and wine. You sweep your straw mattress with a sigh, brushing away crumbs he didn't bother to notice. Historians still debate whether brothel workers ever refused drunken customers. Some records suggest refusal meant punishment, others hint at occasional choice. Either way, you rarely gamble. A small moment of humor catches you. The sailors' laughter outside sounds like gulls bickering over scraps. You imagine them all with feathers, flapping clumsily in sandals, and the thought almost makes you smile. Almost. The night thickens, oil lamps burning lower, the city louder than ever. You settle back on the mattress, waiting for the next knock, the next shadow at the curtain, the next exchange of coin for time. By now, the night has its own rhythm. Knock, curtain, coin, silence, repeat. You've lost track of how many footsteps have entered and left, how many coins have landed in your purse. The line between one visitor and the next blurs until it feels like a single, endless face, shifting slightly with each encounter. You take a moment to breathe, leaning against the cool stone wall. The lamp flickers, shadows stretching across your skin. Your reflection in the bronze mirror looks tired. The rouge faded, the kohl smeared. You touch up what you can, more out of habit than vanity. Here's your historical fact. The Roman poet Juvenal once mocked prostitutes in his satires, claiming they painted their faces too heavily, disguising exhaustion as a lure. His words still echo across centuries, sharp and judgmental. The obscure tidbit: some Roman cosmetics contained lead, giving a pale glow while slowly poisoning the skin. Beauty, quite literally, came at a deadly price. A man enters quietly, unlike the rowdy sailors. He's older, with the air of someone who has seen too much and says little about it. His eyes linger, not on you, but on the lamp, the walls, the ceiling, as if searching for something he lost long ago. The silence between you weighs heavier than his coin. When he leaves, you feel oddly lonelier than before. Historians still debate whether prostitutes ever formed bonds with regular clients, moments of recognition amid routine. Some records suggest loyalty. Others insist it was purely transactional. You smirk once, whispering to the empty air, "If I get paid for silence, perhaps I should start charging double." The thought is both joke and truth. Outside, the tavern noise rolls on, songs blending into arguments, arguments into laughter, laughter into snores. The night is far from over, and neither are you. The curtain stirs again, as inevitable as the tide, and you rise once more to greet whoever Rome has decided to send. The night stretches long, like wax melting slowly from a candle. You feel it in your shoulders, your back, the way your smile resists being summoned yet again. Still, you sit straighter when the curtain shifts. Another client, another coin. This one arrives with the swagger of someone who thinks the world owes him applause. His sandals slap loudly, his toga hangs carelessly, and his breath already reeks of spiced wine. He jokes before stepping inside, though the joke makes little sense even to him. You nod politely, as if you understood. The lamp sputters, as if rolling its eyes. Here's your historical fact. The poet Ovid once wrote that prostitutes sometimes advertise themselves with little gestures or phrases on the street. A tilt of the head, a particular word, signals for those who knew how to read them. The obscure tidbit, some even scratched symbols on walls to mark their presence. Tiny signs only insiders would recognize. Imagine secret graffiti codes, the kind you'd miss unless you were looking closely. The encounter is brief, his laugh echoing longer than the visit itself. When he leaves, you exhale, shoulders sagging. The coin feels heavier than it should in your palm, as if weighted with his arrogance. You drop it into the purse anyway. Survival doesn't discriminate. Historians still debate whether women like you ever shared earnings with tavern keepers above. Some evidence suggests partnerships. Others point to exploitation. The truth, as usual, is blurred by time and silence. Your humor for the moment. You glance at the curtain and mutter, "If swagger paid double, I'd retire by morning." The tavern noise swells again, arguments booming into the street. Somewhere nearby, a fight breaks out. Fists, shouts, then laughter, as if it were all a performance. You shake your head. Rome, the eternal stage, never closes its curtains, and neither do you. Not yet. The hours tip closer to dawn, though you wouldn't know it by the sound. Rome refuses to rest. The tavern above groans like a weary beast, yet men still stumble down the stairs, still knock on your curtain, still exchange coins for minutes. You light a fresh wick in the oil lamp. Its glow soft but unsteady. Shadows stretch across the walls, lengthening your little chamber into something almost grand. Almost. You sit on the mattress, smoothing the straw beneath you. Ready again. Here's your historical fact. Brothels in Pompeii. Uncovered centuries later, revealed walls covered in frescoes of erotic scenes. Not art for art's sake, but visual menus for customers. Pictures when words failed. The obscure tidbit. Some of these frescoes were surprisingly humorous, depicting clumsy lovers or exaggerated poses. Even in ancient Rome, not every mural was serious. A man enters quietly, older, dressed neatly. He places a coin down first, almost respectfully, then sits. His voice is low, his manner gentle. For a brief while, the air feels less heavy, as if dignity still flickers somewhere in this life. When he leaves, you find yourself oddly grateful, though the coin in your purse is no different from the rest. Historians still debate whether such clients offered real kindness or whether memory softens their edges over time. The records are silent, leaving only imagination. You lean back, laughing softly to yourself. Perhaps the frescoes upstairs need a new panel. Me, yawning, with one hand on a broom. The lamp gutters, threatening to die. You pinch the wick, relight it, and sit in the silence. Outside, the city shifts toward its next act. Carts rumbling early, vendors preparing stalls. Dawn is near. Another day looms, though this one hasn't quite ended. Your eyes burn, but sleep will not come yet. Rome doesn't allow it. Not for you, not for anyone who survives in its shadows. The first hints of dawn creep into the city like shy guests, slow and pale. Rome, however, doesn't blush at morning. It simply changes tempo. The tavern above begins to quiet, its last stragglers collapsing into snores or stumbling into the street. You hear benches scrape, mugs clink, and then the creak of a door as it finally shuts. Silence, if you can call it that, drapes itself over the building. You stretch your arms, bones cracking softly in the stillness. The lamp's glow feels unnecessary now, though the light of day struggles to reach your cellar. Your eyes sting with fatigue, lids heavy, but you resist the pull of sleep. Too soon, you remind yourself. Too risky. Here's your historical fact. In ancient Rome, prostitutes often worked all through the night, with dawn marking not rest, but transition. The shift from drunken customers to sober, hurried ones catching a moment before work. The obscure tidbit, archaeologists once found bronze tokens in Rome, believed to be spintriae. Some think they served as brothel currency, decorated with suggestive images, so the illiterate could order without speaking. Imagine paying for your morning like choosing from a fast food menu, but with frescoes instead of fries. A bleary-eyed man passes by your door, glances in, then keeps walking. His tunic is neat enough to suggest a job of some standing, perhaps a scribe or clerk. He mutters something about being late and disappears into the street. For once, you are relieved at being ignored. Historians still debate whether women in your position rested at dawn or pushed on until noon. The line between night and day was less about sunlight and more about demand. You chuckle softly, whispering, "The roosters crow and Rome yawns." But me? I'm still waiting for yesterday to end. The city breathes again, vendors calling, carts rattling, Sandals shuffling, morning has returned, and so has the cycle. You close your curtain, exhale, and brace yourself for another round. The city's morning rhythm builds quickly. By now, Rome is awake in full. Bakers selling loaves still steaming from their ovens. Children darting around fountains. Merchants arranging goods in careful rows. The smell of bread mingles with smoke, fish, and sweat. A breakfast bouquet no one asked for. You step outside your cell, purse tucked close. The toga clings awkwardly after a night's wear, but you smooth it anyway. A few coins jingle softly. Earned, not celebrated. You walk slowly toward the fountain, sandals slapping against stones still cool from the night. Here's your historical fact. Rome's public fountains weren't only for drinking. They were the city's bathrooms, laundromats, and gossip centers. The aqueducts fed them constantly, making water accessible even to the poorest citizens. The obscure tidbit: some fountains were decorated with grotesque masks or mythological creatures, a kind of civic theater where even water had flair. You dip your hands into the cold stream, splashing your face. The chill jolts you awake more than sleep ever could. Around you, women scrub tunics, children splash each other, and men fill heavy jars to haul home. A boy rinses a chicken, feathers floating downstream like bedraggled confetti. You rinse your mouth with wine from a small flask, hoping no one notices. Hygiene is a luxury in Rome, and improvisation is survival. Historians still debate how often prostitutes used public baths versus quick fountain washes. Baths required time, money, and exposure, things not always affordable or safe. You grin faintly at the thought, if cleanliness is next to godliness, I'm at least within shouting distance. Water drips from your chin as you look around. The sun climbs higher, shadows shorten, and the city tightens its grip on another day. You feel it already, heavy and relentless, but you square your shoulders, turn back toward the brothel, and prepare. After all, the curtain will not draw itself, and the knocks will come again. By mid-morning, the city roars back to life with a kind of stubborn energy. The clatter of carts grows louder, hawkers bellow about olives and figs, and the smoke from cooking fires curls into the sky. Your stomach growls, though your purse reminds you that breakfast is not free. You settle for a heel of yesterday's bread, hard enough to chip a tooth, softened in watered wine. You sit on the edge of your cell's straw mattress, tearing bread into pieces, chewing slowly, pretending it tastes better than it does. Outside, footsteps multiply, voices overlap, the world pressing against your curtain. Here's your historical fact. Prostitutes in Rome often worked in taverns or rooms above them, ensuring a steady flow of customers who came for wine and stayed for more. The link between drink and desire was practical, if not exactly poetic. The obscure tidbit: some taverns painted signs of animals, wolves, roosters, even donkeys, to mark the kind of entertainment inside. A visual code for the illiterate, though the meanings weren't always consistent. Imagine walking in expecting wine and leaving with something else entirely. A merchant pushes through your curtain, the smell of leather clinging to him. His words are hurried, his coins clink decisively. He barely sits before he is gone again, his sandals already squeaking toward the market. The silence that follows feels heavier than the encounter itself. Historians still debate whether prostitutes ever received breaks or whether the flow of clients was too relentless. Evidence suggests both, depending on place and time. You smirk quietly, muttering, "If this counts as a break, then I suppose I should thank him for his efficiency." Outside, a fruit seller shouts louder, a donkey brays stubbornly, and Rome surges forward. Your curtain stirs once more, reminding you the morning is still young, and the day's demands have only begun. The sun climbs, heat pooling in the stones like a slow fire. The alley smells sharper now. Fish left too long, sweat carried on the breeze, the faint sweetness of figs turning overripe in baskets. You shift uncomfortably, adjusting the toga as if that could ward off the heat. The tavern above stirs again. Men laugh, mugs slam, dice tumble across tables. Someone curses loudly, followed by the scrape of a bench toppling over. The brothel's rhythm echoes the taverns. Noise above, quiet, bargaining below. Here's your historical fact. Roman law required prostitutes to live without the protections of respectability. They were marked legally and socially as outside the boundaries of honorable womanhood, no matter how they earned their living. The obscure tidbit? Some brothel walls were scratched with graffiti, little notes left by visitors, names, insults, crude jokes, the kind of record-keeping Rome excelled at, even in its shadows. A young man stumbles down the stairs, grinning sheepishly. He hesitates at your curtain, mutters a greeting, then places a coin carefully in your hand. He is awkward, almost boyish, his words fumbling more than his hands. When he leaves, you are left with the odd impression of innocence misplaced. Historians still debate whether young men visiting brothels were seen as rites of passage or simply tolerated indulgences. The sources are divided, and perhaps the truth is both. You laugh softly to yourself. If this is Rome's version of education, no wonder the Senate argues endlessly. Outside, voices rise again, merchants haggling, children shrieking, dogs barking at carts. The heat bears down, sweat mingling with perfume, until you can't tell one from the other. The curtain sways faintly, a breeze sneaking in, and for one brief moment you feel almost refreshed, but only for a moment. The next knock comes soon after, and with it, the cycle begins anew. The afternoon wears on, heavy as a wet cloak. The stones outside gleam with heat, and every sandal scrape sounds exaggerated, like the city itself is dragging its feet. You sip slowly from a small cup of watered wine, trying to fool your body into thinking it's refreshed. It isn't. The tavern noise has dulled into a lower hum, still busy, but less frenzied than the night before. Laughter spills occasionally through the floorboards, drifting down like crumbs of someone else's feast. You sit cross-legged on the straw mattress, comb in hand, running it through hair that tangles more each day. Here's your historical fact. The satirist Martial often mocked prostitutes in his epigrams, joking that their work was as common as bakers selling bread. His sharp wit cut deep, though his verses are now some of the clearest windows into your daily world. The obscure tidbit: some women used wool thread wigs to cover thinning hair, dyed in colors like red or gold. A little flair in a life that offered few luxuries. A regular customer slips through your curtain, quiet and efficient. His visits are always brief, almost transactional, to the point of forgetting there's a human on either side. He leaves coins with the same rhythm he enters, and nothing more. When he's gone, you feel lighter, not heavier, which is rare enough to note. Historians still debate whether regular clients formed a strange kind of safety net for prostitutes. Familiarity in a world where strangers were constant, the records remain silent, leaving only shadows of speculation. You murmur dryly into the empty air. Loyalty, Rome style, measured in coins, not kindness. The sun outside shifts again, long shadows creeping across doorways. Somewhere nearby, a boy whistles off-key while leading a mule, and the sound carries farther than it should. Afternoon in Rome, too hot, too loud, too endless. You stretch your legs, listen to the muffled tavern laughter, and prepare once more for the inevitable knock. As evening approaches, the air changes texture. Cooler, yes, but also sharper. Voices sound clearer, footsteps quicker. Rome is gathering itself for its nightly display, and you can feel the anticipation, even here in your narrow alley. You rise from the mattress, shaking the straw free from your toga, reapplying rouge with steady fingers. The bronze mirror reflects a face you almost don't recognize, painted into someone braver than you feel. Perfume dabbed behind the ears, earrings straightened, sandals tightened. A soldier going into battle, except your battlefield is lined with curtains, not shields. Here's your historical fact. Prostitutes were not allowed to testify in Roman courts. Their voice is deemed unreliable by law. The system dismissed them as untrustworthy simply for their profession, silencing them even when crimes were committed against them. The obscure tidbit? Some Roman laws even fined prostitutes for wearing clothing reserved for matrons. One garment could mean the difference between dignity and disgrace, at least in the eyes of the Senate. A group of men wander past your cell, laughing too loudly, jostling one another. One pauses, gestures to you with exaggerated gallantry, and tosses a coin in the air before catching it. You roll your eyes when he turns away, muttering, "If wit were worth money, Rome would be broke by now." Historians still debate whether prostitutes sought out busier nights or avoided them, balancing income with exhaustion. The fragments of graffiti and scattered accounts don't agree. The tavern above grows louder again, dice rolling, mugs clattering, a chorus of voices rising in uneven song. The street smells of roasted meat, spilled wine, and oil lamps freshly lit. Rome has entered its evening, and so have you. The curtain stirs faintly in the lamplight, and you take a deep breath. The night ahead will be long, but familiar. You smooth the folds of your toga, fix your practiced half-smile, and wait. The knocks will come soon enough. Night returns with its usual swagger, as if Rome had been waiting all day just for this moment. The lamps glow along the streets like small golden moons, their oil burning steady in the evening breeze. Shadows stretch and ripple against walls, turning ordinary corners into secret places. You sit just inside your curtain, eyes adjusting to the softer light, body bracing for another round of endless faces. The tavern above bursts into life once more. Laughter rains down through the beams, punctuated by the thud of dice and the scrape of benches. Someone starts a song, half patriotic hymn, half bawdy joke, and the crowd joins in without caring which half they're singing. Here's your historical fact. In Rome, prostitutes were often associated with taverns, not only because of the constant flow of customers, but because taverns themselves carried a reputation for immorality, drinking, gambling, and sex. 3 activities that Rome loved, but preferred to scorn in theory. The obscure tidbit, Archaeologists found inscriptions near taverns that included menus, graffiti drawings, and even jokes carved directly into the plaster. Rome left reminders on its walls, as if paper would never last, but laughter in stone might. A man enters your cell with a sheepish grin. He talks more than he acts, telling you about the Senate debate he overheard earlier, ranting about taxes and corruption. His words tumble out faster than the coins he leaves, and you wonder if he paid simply for an audience. When he finally exits, you chuckle softly, shaking your head. Historians still debate whether prostitutes sometimes doubled as confidants, absorbing the rants and worries of men who had no one else to listen. The sources are silent, but silence doesn't mean absence. You murmur dryly to yourself, "Next time, I'll charge by the complaint." Outside, the city pulses with new life, louder now than midday, brighter than dawn. Another night has begun, and you are part of its glow, whether you wish to be or not. Hours blur quickly under lamplight. Customers drift in and out like waves, some crashing with force, others gliding softly. Your body responds automatically. Curtain, coin, smile, repeat, until it feels like muscle memory, more than choice. You pause to breathe when the room empties, leaning back against the wall. The straw mattress crackles beneath you. The oil lamp sputters. Shadows dance across your arms. You dab at your makeup with careful fingers, smoothing smudges, refreshing color. The mirror tells you only part of the truth. The rest is hidden beneath routine. Here's your historical fact. Roman moralists often warned that prostitutes corrupted not only men but the state itself, turning private indulgence into public decay. Yet the same critics admitted, grudgingly, that Rome without its brothels might be far more chaotic. The obscure tidbit: some brothels even hired door attendants, men who acted as both guards and ushers, keeping track of coins, rooms, and visitors. Imagine someone taking tickets at the theater, except the performance is you. A young man barges in, laughter spilling ahead of him. He reeks of wine, yet his steps are steady. He places the coin almost dramatically, as if declaring victory. The visit is short, more his performance than yours, and when he leaves, the silence feels like a gift. Historians still debate whether prostitutes ever gained moments of genuine autonomy, choosing clients, setting prices, deciding their hours. Evidence suggests fragments of freedom, but always within tight boundaries. You smile wryly at the thought, whispering, "If autonomy means choosing between drunk or sober, then yes, I'm free indeed." The tavern roars louder, dice rattling like bones in a cup, mugs slamming in uneven rhythm. Outside, the street glimmers with oil lamps, voices weaving together like threads in a chaotic tapestry. You rise, straighten your toga, and wait again by the curtain. Another knock will come, as sure as dawn, and you, still painted, still perfumed, will answer. The night wears on, but Rome shows no sign of exhaustion. The tavern above is still alive, voices rising and falling like waves on stone. Outside, sandals slap against the streets as latecomers wander in search of bread, wine, or something less respectable. You lean in your doorway, lamp flickering faintly at your side. The air carries the mixed perfume of roasted meat, spilled garum, and smoke, somehow both comforting and suffocating. Your purse feels heavier than yesterday, though the coins never seem to stretch far. You tuck it closer, as if clutching security itself. Here's your historical fact. Prostitutes in Rome were subject to taxes, with part of their earnings flowing back into the state's coffers. The empire profited from your labor, even as it labeled you dishonorable. The obscure tidbit: some emperors, like Caligula, were rumored to regulate brothel prices directly, treating intimacy like grain or wine, another commodity for Rome to manage. Whether truth or slander, the rumor says much about how the state viewed your work. A middle-aged man enters your cell, his hands clean, his tunic neatly belted. He seems almost apologetic, speaking softly, placing the coin with care. His time is brief, his departure quiet. You sit for a moment afterward, staring at the coin, as if it might explain something about him. It doesn't. Historians still debate whether clients sought dignity in these moments or merely distraction. The truth, like the man himself, slips away too quickly to know. You chuckle dryly, whispering, "At least Rome is consistent. It taxes everyone, even me." The lamp gutters, then steadies again, as if stubbornly unwilling to give out. Outside, the laughter continues, songs slurring into arguments. You settle back on the mattress, smoothing the straw with tired hands. The curtain sways faintly, a reminder that night has not ended. Not yet. The hours crawl toward dawn, and still the city breathes loudly. Oil lamps burn lower, casting longer shadows, and the tavern above groans like a tired giant unwilling to sleep. You sense the shift in rhythm. The drunker the crowd, the slower their footsteps, the heavier their laughter. You wash your face with a splash from a small clay jug, the water stale, but cooling. Rouge reapplied, perfume dabbed once more, hair smoothed back. The bronze mirror shows the same tired face you saw yesterday, painted over, like a cracked wall. Here's your historical fact. Roman society believed that prostitutes could never reclaim respectability, even if they left the trade. The legal stain was permanent, branding them outside the circle of honorable women forever. The obscure tidbit: some prostitutes adopted stage names, dramatic or playful, shielding their real identities. A little theater in a life already heavy with performance. A boisterous young soldier pushes through your curtain, clattering into the room like a storm. His words tumble faster than his steps, full of jokes that make him laugh more than you. The encounter is brief, chaotic, and leaves your straw mattress skewed at odd angles. When he leaves, silence is slow to return. Historians still debate whether soldiers were the most common clients in brothels or simply the most memorable. Records mention them often, but records were written by men who noticed soldiers everywhere. You smirk faintly, whispering, "If charm were measured in volume, he'd be Rome's emperor." The lamp flickers again, smoke curling faintly toward the ceiling. Outside, dawn whispers at the edges of the night, faint and pale, though the city pretends not to hear it. You know it's coming, though. Another morning, another cycle. You straighten your toga, settle on the mattress, and wait for the last knocks of the night. Rome doesn't sleep, and neither, it seems, do you. The city outside your curtain begins to soften. The shouts from the tavern have turned into mutters, laughter replaced by hiccups and snores. A cart rumbles past, its wheels echoing in the dawn-tinged streets. Even the dogs seem tired, curling into doorways, tails twitching in their sleep. You sit with your back against the cool wall, straw scratching your skin through the thin fabric of your toga. The oil lamp flickers, its wick almost gone, filling the air with the faint scent of smoke and old oil. You count the coins in your purse, their clink as familiar as your own breath. Enough for food, maybe a bath, but never enough to imagine leaving. Here's your historical fact. Roman prostitutes were often denied burial in family tombs, forced instead into communal plots for those considered dishonorable. Even in death, separation lingered. The obscure tidbit: some epitaphs of prostitutes have been found with affectionate inscriptions, short notes left by lovers or friends. She was kind, one reads, a small rebellion against the silence of shame. A final customer slips through your curtain before morning claims the streets. He is quiet, almost embarrassed, the sort who enters with head bowed and leaves the same way. His visit is brief, his coin placed carefully in your hand. When he disappears, you exhale, shoulders sinking as if you've been holding them up for hours. Historians still debate whether mornings were the quietest time for brothels or merely the most private. The truth may be lost in the noise of the city's busier hours. You smile faintly, whispering, Rome may never sleep, but I almost believe it naps. The first birds begin to sing outside, their voices thin but clear. The curtain sways gently with the cool morning breeze. And for one rare moment, the air feels clean. The city exhales as dawn finally claims it. Light creeps into the alleyways, pale and golden, brushing against the stones with soft fingers. The tavern above has fallen nearly silent, its benches empty, its mugs abandoned. Rome itself seems to sigh, easing into the quieter rhythm of morning. After a long night, you lie back on the straw mattress, letting your body sink into the scratchy bedding. The lamp flickers once, then dies, leaving only the soft light of dawn to warm your cell. You close your eyes, listening to the distant hum of carts being loaded, fountains splashing, voices rising in gentle conversation instead of rowdy shouts. The city is still alive, but its tone is slower now, softer, less demanding. Your thoughts drift like the smoke of the extinguished lamp. You remember the dice left behind by a sailor, the awkward boy who muttered his way through a visit, the older man whose silence carried more weight than words. Faces blur, voices fade, leaving only the steady rhythm of coin after coin, step after step, dawn after dawn. Here's your final historical fact. Rome's economy leaned heavily on those it claimed to scorn: prostitutes, tavern keepers, entertainers. The empire's heartbeat was not only senators and soldiers, but you and countless others like you, surviving in the shadows. The obscure tidbit: some ancient writers compared brothels to necessary drains in a great city, not praised, not celebrated, but acknowledged as essential. Crude, but perhaps honest. Historians still debate whether lives like yours were tragic, resilient, or simply ordinary. Perhaps they were all three. Your breath slows as you let the weight of the night slip away. The straw prickles, but you stop noticing. The sounds of Rome fade into a kind of lullaby. Wheels creaking, fountains murmuring, birds calling gently through the alleys. The light grows warmer, softer, wrapping around you like a blanket. And as your eyes finally close, the city carries on without you, just as it always has. Rest comes slowly, but at last it comes, and Rome, eternal and restless, whispers on. The night has ended, the lamps extinguished, and Rome drifts into the gentler rhythm of morning. You've walked through a day in the life of someone rarely remembered, someone whose labor kept the city turning even as it dismissed her. You've smelled the smoke from the taverns, felt the heat of the stones beneath your sandals, and watched the curtains stir again and again with footsteps that never seemed to stop. But now, you can let all of that slip away. The bustle of Rome fades into the distance, its carts and fountains and noisy crowds softening into little more than a hum. Imagine it shrinking, quieter with each breath you take, until the alleyways empty and the stones are cool and still beneath the dawn. Breathe deeply, let your shoulders loosen. Your body sinks, not into a straw mattress this time, but into something softer, safer. Each exhale is like dust swept away from a floor, leaving the space calmer, cleaner, quieter. The noises of the city blur together. Footsteps, murmurs, laughter, the clink of coins, until they're no louder than a distant lullaby. Even the voices of the tavern fade, replaced by the softer song of birds greeting the light. You rest in that warmth, in that stillness, knowing there is no need to answer the next knock, no need to rise and paint a face in the mirror, no need to perform for a world that is always hungry. Here, in this moment, you are unobserved, untouched, at peace. Let your eyes grow heavier. Let your breath grow slower. The curtain no longer stirs. The lamp no longer smokes. And Rome itself grows quiet, as though the eternal city has finally decided to sleep alongside you. Good night.